Now we're going. Well, hello. Welcome down here to the root cellar. I have to confess something. I'm an addict. I'm addicted to reloading equipment. And unfortunately, another good deal came along on a Dillon 1050. Man, that's not quite true. It was a good deal on two Dillon 1050s. This is the original one that I got, the Super 1050 that's, I don't know, I got it from a neighbor and it was probably 3 or 4 years old. It is now probably 3 or 4 years old. Thereabouts, 5, whatever. It's a very current production model. Just behind it is another Super 1050, which is a really early production model of the Super 1050. They're virtually identical. The big difference you can see is right here in the frame. This is a small difference. Also, this has an early case feeder on it, an earlier model case feeder, the one that was used on the original RL 1050. And that's what's back there at the back, an original RL 1050 that dates back to who knows, 1990, I don't know, 1985. I don't know when they started making them for sure, but it's the original. And while these two are virtually identical in every way, there are significant differences with the RL 1050 versus the Super 1050. And I'll point those out. The very most significant difference is in the stroke. It makes a big difference when you jump up to rifle cartridges. You just can't fit the case and the bullet under there, even a 223, and I was trying to use 62 grain bullets and it just won't fit under the dies. Otherwise, it would be all right, but it's great for pistol. That's the most significant difference. There is another tremendous mechanical difference that really doesn't matter because it doesn't affect the way you use it, but it's all to do in the linkage down there. Now, I need to probably just do a separate video on that. It's kind of fascinating the way the RL works. It's really unique. I don't know of any press. I've just never seen a press, even the old ones that work this way. So we'll take a look at that later. Anyway, today, this one was set up for 45 ACP. This one back here was not really set up for anything, but I thought, well, I'm going to do some 223. I'll just use it. And that's when I discovered that the stroke was not quite sufficient to allow clearance for the bullet under the bullet seating die. So I said, well, it's great for pistols. So what we're going to do is swap the 45 ACP completely over to the RL 1050, and we'll set up the Super 1050 for 223. Now, I think this will be an excellent opportunity to see what's involved because everything has to change. The shell plate will go from pistol to rifle. The primers will go from large to small, and the primer feed mechanism changes. The powder measure goes from a smaller amount to a larger amount. There has to be a change in that. We'll have to change out the shell plate because it's a different caliber. And the case feed, and the case feed, what do you call that? The feed slide, the feed device, anyway, the feeder that feeds the case into Station 1 on the Dillon 1050. I was erroneously calling that Station 0 and starting here at 1, 2, 3. Dillon doesn't do that. Dillon says the first one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So great. And that's what we'll do. We're going to put a bullet feeder on it. We're going to move the bullet feeder from here over to here, and it will have to be recalibrated for rifle bullets. So it's just going to be a ton of stuff to do to it, and I wanted to share this with you because I think this will give you a really, really good look at the guts and gizzards of this Dillon 1050. So let's get going. Well, the very first thing I want to do is just take the entire tool head off as is, and I'm going to transfer it to the other machine. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if that will work. It would work going from a Super 1050 to another Super 1050, but going to the machine with a shorter stroke, it may not. On the other hand, the dies are adjusted relative to the shell plate. So I think it will work over there, save me a lot of trouble later on. So our first step is going to be to get this off, but in order to do that, there are several things we need to do first. For example, I know I'm going to be changing this out, so I'm just going to go ahead and take it off and get it out of the way. It's not imperative that you do that, but we might as well, because that'll just save us some effort later on. All right, I've got all my tools over here. They include the special screwdriver for changing out the little guide plate for the primer punch. You're only going to need 2 Allen wrenches, a 1/8 and a 5/32. You're going to need a wrench for your dies if you're messing with them. You're going to need a regular screwdriver, maybe, but I did it for something. I forgot what, but that's about it. Oh, and then 1 larger wrench to fit the nut on top of the tool head. So let's just start right here with the 5/32, and we'll take off the cover of the shell feeder, and we're going to remove the plunger. That's what it is. I was trying to think of that a while ago, and it's the plunger. And okay, let's switch over to this one, and the roller mechanism needs to come off, and there's a spring inside, so you kind of want to hold on to the plunger. This comes off here, and then the plunger just comes out with a spring, and there's no big deal about that. The spring just floats in here. This needs to be greased up when it's in here. That's about all you got to do. So for the moment, I'm going to just move it over here where it will end up, along with the little guide for the large pistol stuff. Now, meanwhile, I'll just move that out of the way. All right, the next thing we have to do is get this shell kicker out of the way. When a loaded round comes around to the last stage, when the thing advances, that kicks it off. So that's also in the way of the shell plate. I'd already loosened this. It's not that loose. So all I got to do is just rotate it around, and now we'll be able to get to the shell plate to take it off. So the next thing we want to do is prepare to remove the head. All right, now we can move on to removing the tool head. And a lot of people make the mistake of just at this point either leaving it where it is and loosening this up, or running it down, loosening it, whatever, trying to take it off when things are in this state. And it can be done, but you're causing yourself a whole lot of trouble if you do it that way. What will happen is, that's a whole lot better, is just loosen this one screw right here. And actually, you want to come all the way down first, and that takes the tension off of this. And this is your primer feed device. Let's see, let me back out where you can see what I'm doing. And I've moved it up out of the way here, because this is just, it's just going to play havoc with the head trying to remove it. And the other thing you want to take off is this hook back here. And this is the, boy, again, somebody had their Wheaties. This is the device that you hear clicking when yeah, you can see the teeth in it. When the thing goes up and when it goes down, it goes a ratchet. And what happens is that ratchet catches on these teeth and prevents it from coming back up unless you move it out of the way. That's it back there. So we'll get this out of the way with one screw. So now we've removed 2 screws, and we've made life a whole lot better for ourselves. I've still got the dies on there. If I didn't, it would be a piece of cake to remove this. Well, that's not bad. And so, oh, one last thing. You got to remove the link arm on your powder measure back here. There's a cotter pin that you want to remove, and there's this little rod that goes through the powder measure. You just drop that out of the way, and now the powder measure is free to come off. Otherwise, it's still attached to the lower part of the machine. Now, with all those out of the way, you can take this screw out by hand, and I want you to know that there is a really big spring back there on the back, and it is trying to push this thing up. To get it out, what you want to do is put a little pressure back here at the back, and that's it, and it'll come right out just like that. No fighting. Even now it's hard to get out because of all the stuff that's on it. But that's it. You got to admit, here's the spring that goes back in here. That's not too hard to do if you will do those steps that I mentioned. Now, in theory, we're going to be able to take this and mount it over here on this other machine, and it'll work. In fact, I'm tempted to do that right now just to take a look at it. No, I'm not, because there's so much more that has to go on over here. So for now, we'll put this tool head out of the way back there, and we will proceed to take everything else off that we need to take. Now, I'll move that spring out of the way. We normally wouldn't have to mess with this, but since we're going to change out the primer from large to small, we really need to remove this in order to get everything out. And this is, we use the larger of our 2 wrenches, Allen wrenches. And truth is, I didn't have to slide this up in this case if I could have gotten down there to this, but I'm telling you, it's kind of hard to do. It's easier just to do it the way I'm showing you. And see, that just lifts off. And there's that screw. Now, inside of this thing, here on the top is your little early warning unit. Let's see, I've got that plug guide in there. And it needs to just slide off. And then there is a cap at the top, which comes off. And then inside is the actual primer tube. And it has a red tip. The small one has a blue tip. And this is a pretty hefty steel containment. This is in case you ever set off a column of primers. It's everybody's hope that this thing right here will save you from a lot of harm and so forth, whereas these little thin aluminum jobs, they're just going to go all to pieces. But this will contain everything. And I've read reports of it happening, and that they did, in fact, work quite well. Next thing we want to do is actually just to remove the shell plate. And that's held in place by this big nut, which is tight. And the way to get it off is just hit these 4 screws and give them just that much, and then it will come off. These white wire ties are kind of, it's an idea a lot of people use. You just put them on there real tight, and they provide just a little bit of drag against the shell plate as it goes around, and it prevents any kind of jump that would jostle the powder and make it fall out or what have you. And so there's the shell plate. And if you ever have seen a star reloading machine, this will look very familiar. This is virtually a copy of the star, only it has 8 stations instead of 5, I think it is on a star, or 6, whatever, I forget. Okay, move this out of the way over here to the other machine. I'll just set it in place. Now we can see down inside here some things, and one of the things I want to show you is, see if I can hold that. Let's see, 0, yeah. And let's come down with this. And that measures 3.22. So just under 3 1/4, probably 3, I guess it is 3 1/4. Well, no, it doesn't go below. So we'll just say 3 3/16 stroke. The other one is 2 and roughly 5/16 stroke. So it's almost an inch more of stroke on this one. Now, okay. We'll go ahead and remove the primer plate. I don't have to do that. It just reminds me I've got to adjust it later on and get it out of the way. This slides freely here, and you can get it out of here 2 different ways. You could try to feed it out like that. Yeah, you can do it that way. Okay, fine. This is the primer feed plate. Now, here's where the punch comes through that actually pushes the primer up into the case. So what is this other hole about? I want to show you that. This is one of the genius things about this machine. On the 1050 tool head, you've got 4 projecting rods. The one back here in the back rides in that hole where the spring is. The one up in the front goes down into a guide hole right here. And this one right here goes into a guide hole. But what that guide hole is this, I'll get it out of here with one hand, is this primer slide. So what you have going on is this pin sliding into that with a very, very good fit, and it's tapered at the bottom. So if your slide is not all the way in, or if it's too far in, then it will hit that taper and slide into place. And this creates a perfect alignment for the little shell or the little primer punch. So this right here guarantees perfect alignment on your primer feed every time. That is a big deal. This machine has about the best priming mechanism I have ever encountered on anything, and that's part of the secret. Now this other punch right here is what actually operates the primer. And let me move into a different spot here and show you how that works. When that tool head comes down, that black punch I was talking about will come down and hit this round rod right there, and it will push it down. And when it does, look what happens back here at the back to the primer punch. This goes down, the primer punch comes up. And you see, depending on how far I push it is how far it comes out. Well, that rod is adjustable up and down, so that's how you can fine-tune your depth. And it also means that this is why it primes on the operating stroke. There's not a secondary stroke required to prime like there is on most machines. When you pull down and do all the other stuff, you're also pushing the primer into place right back there. And there's a rocker arm underneath, which I won't show you, but it's exposed on the outside. Very easy to access and drop a little lubricant in there. This piece right here is just separate. I mean, it just floats in here down against the rocker arm, and the spring is up in here under the little primer mechanism itself. See, I can operate it from underneath by hand. So it's a seesaw, an upside down seesaw. This is pushing on one end, and the primer comes up on the other. Okay. But it's important to understand that it has two excellent features. One, it is totally adjustable for depth, and two, it operates on this main power stroke and does not require you to remember to push forward at the end of a stroke on the other side of things. Let's see, that's slipped down here. Okay. So now we have done that. Let us remove the large primer punch, and to do that we use a special screwdriver with a slotted blade that will straddle the punch, and we can remove the guide just like so, and we'll set it right here. Actually, we'll put it down here with the priming slide, and then I can push up from underneath and get the spring out, and I can get the actual punch itself out, and we can wipe it off and so forth. But that's it. Now you got your whole mechanism. See, if I push down, you can see that coming up. All right. The last thing that we'll have to do in here is to remove and exchange the swaging pin right here that swages the primer pockets. We want to swap it out. Here it is. We want to swap out that one for this one, a large for a small, because we're going to the 223 right here. So here's this piece. I'll show you how that comes out. It's very straightforward. Now we're going to remove the swage punch. First thing you want to do is take a 1/2 inch wrench, and you want to release the tension on that lock screw right there. Then remove these two screws, which actually you can just do one of them and flip that around out of the way, and I'll just loosen the other one. Now, to get that out, this should be a pin with a cotter through it, and I didn't realize it was that way. It never has messed up on me, so whatever. Now, no. Wait a minute. All right, now you can unscrew the punch from the little guide mechanism down here. Here it goes. And then just, that's it. Slide it out. And that's it. Now, we'll move it over here. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and put the other one in its place. So, we got our small one here. We come up through the guide hole. We rotate this what do they call that? They actually have a funny, I mean, it's strangely named, to tell you the truth. Well, why am I having a problem here? Well, devil duty. It's a really tight fit to get this thing started, but what you want to do is, once you get it on there, screw it all the way down, both the nut and the punch. Screw them all the way down as far as they will go, and that will be the minimum setting, so you won't accidentally destroy a case by crushing it when it comes around. All right, let's see. Let's put that retaining screw back on here. Yeah. So, we've done step one of, and there it comes up, and there it goes down, and there it comes up. So, okay. Step one in restoring all this stuff to its former glory. Alrighty, let's redo the primer, put in the small priming mechanism. I'm going to just move this out of the way for the moment, just so it won't interfere with your vision, and also make it easier to get everything in there. First thing we want to do is put in the priming punch and its spring, and that would be this right here, the priming punch, and it just simply drops down in there. And remember, that rocking arm makes it up and down. The spring drops down on top of it, and that is followed by the guide bushing, which screws down into this hole using this special screwdriver right here. Here we go. And so we do that with our left hand, and we get it, whoop, it's centered up on it. There we go. And give it a little bit of torque, and we are now in there. So then we can put our small primer feed, and it has a excuse me, a brass roller back here. Don't lose it. It won't come off once it's down inside the housing. And you want to make sure that's nice and clean down in there. That's about it. That's about all you got to do. All right, let's put our little show guide back in place. And we just leave it all the way out and loose for right now. All right, I think we're done with that. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to replace this priming apparatus. First of all, we're going to put the primer feed tube in here, the one with the blue tip. And this thing is keyed. Let's see if I can show you down here on the end, so that when I rotate around, at some point, there it goes, it will drop in. There's a little fin there on this thing, which you can maybe see. And so you just rotate around until you feel it drop into place. And at that point, you come and put the cap on it and screw it down good and tight. You don't have to crush it, that's all. Now, this goes back on, and it won't go but one way. It's pretty obvious when you get it on there. While it's off, though, let me show you how this thing works. I think you can see down in here the sliding primer feed. This arm as the press moves up and down, there's a cutout slot here. It's like a cam, and as it slides down that, it'll go in and out. In fact, when it goes up, it's out, and when it comes down, it will slide in. And the tip of this thing is engaging that primer slide, and it pushes it back and forth just like that. Now, if you're wondering about this spring business here, you've actually got two pieces. This piece right here is independent of all the stuff back here behind it, including this wraparound bracket with the springs. The cam will move this wraparound bracket, and this will move as well because it's trapped in here by these springs, but it's free to move separately in both directions. More so this way. That way, should you get into a bind, it won't force things. The spring will allow it to give, and a stuck primer or something like that won't cause a problem. And it's just one more of the design features. Instead of just having one piece that moves back and forth, it's two, with one of them being spring-loaded. All right. We'll take our cap screws and put them on here. Okay. All right, now we'll be moving this back down later. We want to put our tool head on first before we do any of that. Now, I think that is everything we need to do here prior to putting on the shell plate. And where did I put it? The shell plate. Oh, here it is. I got too many things to keep up with. Your shell plate needs some grease around the inner lip, the part that's gonna, or the inner rim, where it's gonna fit under this nut. And show you how I put it on. There's a million different pieces of advice on this, but I do it with the handle down because it's free to turn at this point. And my technique is to put it down tight to the point where you really can't turn it, and then just simply operate it one time. And that will loosen it up just absolutely perfect. Then just tighten these 4 screws. And I mean, do not over tighten them. If you're using an Allen wrench, oh, where's my Allen wrench? I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me get to this one. Don't do that. Put it on here like that, and just turn it at the top. Believe me, you will get all that you need. It won't budge at that point. You know, the American way is to overdo things, so I understand that. That's fine. The Lottle principle. If a little is good, a lottle is better. So, yeah, I understand it. But don't tear it up. All right, now we have got our shell plate on here. This is easy to get to, but we can also do it later. We can, at this point, we can do things in pretty much any order we want to. I think I'll go ahead and put the tool head on. All right, here's the tool head, and by having this up out of the way over here, see, it doesn't create a problem interfering here where we're trying to get things in and out. So you put the spring in here and you slide that rod down into the spring. Then bring the head up, and this thing will just drop right down onto it, just like that. I mean, No muss, no fuss, no foul, no problem. And then put this on there and just loose. And at that point, come down with it and make sure things are feeling okay. That feels kind of tight, but I guess it's, yeah, it's all right. All right. While it's down, that's when you want to tighten it, because everything is in alignment down underneath. So and that's it. You don't have to overdo that one either. And now, oh yeah, it's just amazing. It is so smooth. And you see this one over here? Can you see that one? How it goes down in there and right there, and it's punching the priming device. Meanwhile, this one is going down into the primer slide and lining it up. Okay. All right, now we'll do our case feed plunger. We've got our small one marked with an S, and I had that screwed in there temporarily. Move it out of the way. Put our plunger spring up inside the plunger. Put the whole thing down here on top and screw the roller into the side. And I want to use the correct wrench, and that's that. Okay, so now we can put the cover plate on it, and that's down like so, and down like so. You don't need a lot of, this is plastic. No effort required. Over here on the far side, flip around. I don't know if you can't see it very well, but you flip the little shell guide plate or guide rod device, whatever, over here to the far side, and just tighten it down, and you just want it where it doesn't touch, and it's not. So that's done. And while we're thinking about it, we can put our shell plate guide in here. The rifle one has a cutout, and so it's keyed. The others are, the pistol ones are free to rotate, but this one has a pin in it that aligns with that little hole. So periodically kind of check your progress. Nothing's binding up. Our case feeder seems to be working just fine. Spring's not making atrocious noise back there. Okay. I think now we can go ahead and put our feeder into place. Let me back up and let you watch me struggle with that. You have to come in here with something and kind of push that primer slide back here where it's visible. And you want to push it all the way to the back, and then we're going to hook it with this little hook right here. And you don't want to go way up on it. You want the least amount of hook that you can get on it, and where it will still, okay, I'm slipping off of it there. Now I'm on it right there. So that should do it right there. We'll tighten that and see. Now, okay, yeah, I got myself out of order. Wait a minute. Loosen it. Let's pull it up out of the way. Here, just move it there. I need to put this ratchet piece in, and the reason for that is the piece that holds it, this threaded device here, is actually the cam that, let's go this way, it fits up inside this piece here. That's the cam that this rides on, which makes it swing in and out. So you got to have this on there. A lot of people will take this off because they don't like that ratcheting noise, and they also like to be able to reverse it at any point. But I don't know, it's gotta feed it down there below it. It's a huge safety because it will keep you from double clutching, so to speak, from going in there and double feeding powder. And that's not a bad thing. Okay, now we've got that on there. And you can see how that will slide down onto that cam. And it's under some tension at this point. And so I want to get down. Oh, went too far. I'm behind it, but I'm so far down now that there we go. Right there. I was so far down that when it swings back, it's like a playground swing. You know, it comes down, and where your feet dig in the dirt under a playground swing, this would bind up. Attempting to go back. So let's see if it'll work now. Yep. Like a champ. It's popping back and forth. I see. Yeah, I see the primer. Oh yeah, it's coming way up. It may be coming up too far. If that's the case, we'll adjust this screw. Well, it's this whole rod is threaded with a screw head, and we'll back it off so it doesn't push it down quite as far, which pushes it up. We'll find out about that later. All right, we're coming right along. I think we need to install our early warning safety alarm up there on top. It just sits there. Well, that's enough on this one for now, because we've got everything done on the basic machine itself. What we don't have is we don't have the shell case feeder shell plate in, and we don't have the bullet feeder in yet, and we'll do that in a second episode. So let's just call that quits on part one. Thank you for watching. I hope this was a little bit entertaining and informative, and if you liked it, I never have said this before, but hit the like button, subscribe if you will, and share it with anybody that you think might enjoy it. Thank you.